The rain pounded against the windows of Hank Grayson's weathered Ford pickup as he pulled into the deserted park lot. His 6-year-old daughter Lily, fast asleep in her booster seat. The 32-year-old single father had just finished his second shift of the day, his calloused hands still bearing the marks of hours spent fixing cars at the local garage. His exhaustion was momentarily forgotten when he spotted a lone figure huddled on a bench beneath the park's gazebo, shoulders shaking in what could only be sobs. "Sweetie, I need to check on something. Stay put for a minute, okay?" he whispered to Lily as her eyes fluttered open. She nodded sleepily as Hank grabbed his umbrella from beneath the seat and stepped out into the downpour. As he approached the gazebo, he could see it was a woman in an expensive-looking business suit. Her makeup streaked down her face, clutching her phone like it had delivered fatal news. She didn't notice him until he was standing right in front of her, his 6'2" frame blocking the rain that had begun to spray onto the gazebo floor. "Excuse me, madam, are you all right?" Hank asked, keeping a respectful distance. The woman startled, quickly wiping her tears. "I'm fine," she said automatically, then let out a laugh that sounded more like a sob. "Actually, that's a lie. I'm not fine at all." Hank hesitated, glancing back at his truck where Lily was watching curiously through the window. "Is there someone I can call for you? It's not safe to be alone in this weather." "There's no one," she said quietly, and something in her voice, the raw vulnerability, made Hank's heart twist. "I'm Hank," he offered, gesturing to the space beside her. "Mind if I sit for a minute?" She looked up at him then, really looked at him, her striking hazel eyes assessing whether he posed a threat. Whatever she saw in his earnest face must have reassured her. Fiona Oakes," she replied, sliding over slightly on the bench. "And no, I don't mind." Fiona hadn't planned on telling a stranger about her personal disasters, but there was something about this man's quiet, patient presence that broke down her carefully constructed walls. Within minutes, she was explaining how her fiancé of 3 years had just called off their engagement via text after she'd discovered he'd been embezzling from her company. 7 years of building my business from nothing, and he nearly destroyed it all, she said, her voice hollow. The board is questioning my judgment, the press is having a field day, and the man I thought I'd marry just walked away with company secrets and my dignity. Hank listened without interruption, offering her a clean handkerchief from his pocket when her tears threatened to return. My grandpa always said a real man doesn't kick someone when they're down, he said finally. What your ex did was cowardly and wrong, but you built your company once you can protect it now. A small voice called out from behind them. Daddy, is the lady okay? Hank turned to see Lily standing at the gazebo entrance, her yellow raincoat dripping onto the wooden planks. Lily, I told you to stay in the truck, he said, but his voice was gentle as he motioned her over. The thunder was scary, she explained, her eyes wide as she studied Fiona. Are you sad, lady? My daddy can fix anything that's broken, even people's feelings sometimes. Fiona couldn't help the smile that broke through her tears. Is that so? Lily nodded solemnly. He fixed mine when Mommy went to heaven. He said it's okay to be sad sometimes. Hank's cheeks flushed with embarrassment, but Fiona saw something in that moment, a man who, despite his own pain, had found the strength to guide his daughter through loss. It was so different from the polished, calculated businessmen she encountered daily that it left her momentarily speechless. Your dad sounds very wise, she finally managed. We should go, Lily, Hank said, standing up. It's past your bedtime and you have school tomorrow. He turned to Fiona. Do you have a way home? We could give you a ride if you need one. Fiona shook her head. My driver's waiting at the coffee shop across the street. I just needed some air. She hesitated. Thank you, though, for stopping. Most people wouldn't have. Most people are too busy to notice others, Hank replied with a shrug. You take care of yourself, Miss Oakes. As Hank and Lily walked back to their truck, Fiona found herself watching them, this gentle giant of a man with grease still under his fingernails, and his precocious daughter who clearly adored him. Something about their easy affection made the ache in her chest both sharper and somehow more bearable. She hadn't felt genuinely seen by anyone in years, not even by the man she'd planned to marry. Yet a stranger in a park had offered her more honest comfort in 10 minutes than her ex had in their last year together. What Fiona didn't know, as she finally made her way to her waiting car, was that this chance encounter would change her life in ways she couldn't possibly imagine. 3 days later, Hank was underneath a vintage Mustang when his boss, Frank, called him out from under the car. "Hank, there's someone here asking for you specifically. Says her car needs work, but only you can touch it." Wiping his hands on a shop rag, Hank emerged to find Fiona Oakes standing in the garage's modest waiting area, looking as out of place in her tailored pantsuit as a peacock in a chicken coop. "Miss Oakes," he said, genuinely surprised. "What brings you here?" "My car is making a strange noise," she said, a bit too quickly. "I remembered you mentioned you were a mechanic." The skeptical look from Frank told Hank his boss wasn't buying it either, especially when they both glanced out the window at the brand new Mercedes parked outside. "I can take a look," Hank offered, following her outside. Once they were alone, he turned to her. "No offense, but that car's still got the dealer tags on it." Fiona's professional composure cracked, and she laughed a real laugh this time. "You caught me." "I wanted to thank you properly for the other night. I was in a very dark place, and your kindness meant more than you know." "No thanks necessary," Hank said, shoving his hands in his pockets. "Anyone would have done the same." "We both know that's not true," Fiona replied. "Anyway, I thought perhaps I could take you and Lily to dinner, as a proper thank you." Hank hesitated, and Fiona quickly added, "Just as friends, I'm not that as I know you're probably busy." "It's not that," Hank said. "It's just—" He gestured down at his oil-stained coveralls. "Places you're probably used to wouldn't exactly welcome me dressed like this, and I can't afford to take Lily to fancy restaurants on my salary." Fiona's eyes softened. "I wasn't suggesting anything formal. How about pizza? Is there somewhere local Lily likes?" The mention of his daughter's favorite food broke through Hank's reservations. "She does love Gino's on Maple Street. They have a little arcade section she enjoys." "Perfect. How about Friday at 6? Before Hank could formulate more objections, she added, "Just 2 new friends and a little girl having pizza. Nothing complicated." That Friday, Hank found himself more nervous than he'd been in years. He changed his shirt 3 times before Lily finally put her hands on her hips in exasperation. "Daddy, the blue one looks nice with your eyes. That's what Mrs. Johnson at school always says." Hank smiled at his daughter's serious expression. "Is that so? Well, I guess I better listen to Mrs. Johnson then." When they arrived at Gino's, Fiona was already waiting, dressed in jeans and a simple sweater that probably cost more than Hank's weekly paycheck, but the effort to blend in touched him. Lily, initially shy, warmed up quickly when Fiona asked her about school and actually listened to her detailed explanation of her current art project. "My company has an educational foundation," Fiona mentioned as Lily played in the arcade after dinner. "We fund art programs in schools across the state." "Your company?" Hank asked, realizing he'd never actually asked what she did for work. "Oakes Technologies," she said, watching his face carefully. "I'm the CEO and founder." Hank nearly choked on his soda. "Wait, you're that Fiona Oakes?" "The one who developed the renewable energy storage system that was on the cover of Forbes last year." Now it was Fiona's turn to look surprised. "You raid Forbes?" Hank chuckled. "I fix cars for a living, but I like to keep up with the world. Your battery technology is going to revolutionize the automotive industry. We were just talking about it at the shop last month." As they continued talking, Hank's initial intimidation faded. Despite her success, Fiona was surprisingly down to earth, laughing at his bad jokes and asking thoughtful questions about his life. By the time they said goodbye that evening, something had shifted between them. "Can Miss Fiona come to my soccer game tomorrow?" Lily asked as Hank tucked her into bed that night. I told her all about it, and she said she likes soccer. Honey, Miss Fiona is very busy. She runs a big company with lots of people working for her, Hank explained gently. But she said friends support each other, Lily insisted with the impeccable logic of a 6-year-old. And we're friends now, right? The next morning, Hank was surprised to receive a text from Fiona asking if Lily's invitation to her soccer game still stood. Despite his protests that she shouldn't feel obligated, Fiona appeared at the community field, cheering louder than most parents when Lily managed to kick the ball in approximately the right direction. She's fearless, Fiona commented as they watched from the sidelines. Reminds me of myself at that age, before I learned to be afraid of failing. Do you ever still get afraid? Hank asked. Fiona was quiet for a moment. Every day, especially now with the company facing this crisis. But watching Lily out there, she falls down and just gets back up without a second thought. I need to remember that feeling. After the game, they grabbed ice cream, and somehow this became a routine. Saturdays were for Lily's activities and casual meals together. Wednesdays became their grown-up dinner night, when Hank's neighbor Mrs. Patel watched Lily, and Hank and Fiona could talk without little ears listening. For Fiona, these dinners became an anchor in her tumultuous professional life. While she fought to save her company's reputation and stabilize investor confidence during the day, evenings with Hank offered a respite where she could be herself without pretense. For Hank, each moment with Fiona challenged his preconceptions about what his life could be. He'd assumed that after his wife's death 3 years ago, his world would always be defined by work, and raising Lily that love wasn't in the cards for him anymore. Yet here was this brilliant, beautiful woman who seemed to genuinely enjoy spending time with him and his daughter. Their friendship deepened over the weeks, but both carefully avoided crossing the invisible line into something more, each for their own reasons. Hank couldn't imagine what someone like Fiona would see in a struggling mechanic with a mortgage he could barely afford. While Fiona, still recovering from betrayal, was wary of trusting her heart again, especially to someone so unlike the polished, ambitious men she usually dated. The turning point came unexpectedly, nearly 2 months after their first meeting. Hank received a call from Lily's school that she had fallen on the playground and needed to go to the hospital for stitches. In a panic and unable to reach his boss for permission to leave work, he called Fiona without thinking. "I'll be there in 10 minutes, she said without hesitation. "Text me the hospital address." When Hank finally made it to the emergency room an hour later, he found Fiona sitting beside Lily's bed, reading her a story while his daughter, sporting 4 stitches above her eyebrow and a gauze bandage, giggled at Fiona's dramatic character voices. "Daddy," Lily called when she saw him. "Miss." Fiona made the doctor give me 2 stickers because I was so brave. Fiona stood, concern etched on her face. "I hope it was okay that I came. They needed a parent or guardian, so I might have implied I was her stepmother to get them to treat her right away." "You left a board meeting for this," Hank said, noticing her formal attire. "I saw the news alert about your company's press conference today. It can wait," Fiona said simply. "This was more important." That night, after Lily was asleep, Hank found himself on his front porch with Fiona, the weight of the day settling between them. "No one's ever put Lily first like that," he said finally. "Not since her mother. She's an extraordinary child, Hank. You've done an amazing job raising her." "It's been hard," he admitted, the confession slipping out before he could stop it. "Some days I'm not sure I'm doing anything right. I can't give her all the things other kids have. I'm barely keeping us afloat most months." "You give her what matters," Fiona said softly. "Security, love, your time. Do you know what I had growing up? Every material thing I could want and parents who were too busy building their financial empire to come to a single school event." Hank turned to look at her, really look at her, and found her much closer than he expected. Fiona, whatever he was about to say was interrupted by the soft press of her lips against his. The kiss was gentle, questioning, and over almost before it began. "I'm sorry," she whispered, pulling back. I shouldn't have. Hank's hand came up to cradle her face. Don't apologize. I've wanted to do that for weeks. Their second kiss was deeper, a confirmation of feelings that had been building since that rainy night in the park. When they finally broke apart, Fiona rested her forehead against his. This is crazy, isn't it? She asked. You and me, we come from such different worlds. Maybe that's exactly why it works, Hank suggested. You see things in me that I've forgotten about myself, and I think maybe I do the same for you. As their relationship deepened over the following months, they faced their share of challenges. Fiona's ex attempted to smear her reputation in the press, implying that her new relationship with a common mechanic showed poor judgment. The class differences between them occasionally created misunderstandings, Hank's pride sometimes making it difficult for him to accept Fiona's generosity, while Fiona had to learn that her wealth couldn't solve every problem. But for every challenge, there were twice as many moments of joy. Fiona teaching Lily how to code simple games on a computer, Hank showing Fiona how to change her own oil, lazy Sunday mornings with pancakes and board games, and quiet nights talking about their hopes and fears long after Lily had gone to bed. 6 months into their relationship, Hank received an unexpected opportunity. A client whose vintage car collection he had maintained for years offered to finance him in opening his own specialty restoration garage. It's what I've always wanted, he told Fiona as they sat on his porch swing. To be my own boss, to build something that could eventually be Lily's if she wants it. You should do it, Fiona said without hesitation. You're brilliant with cars, Hank. Everyone says so. It's a risk, he admitted. If it fails, I'd be worse off than I am now. All worthwhile things involve risk, Fiona reminded him. When I started my company, everyone told me I was crazy to leave a secure job, but I knew I'd regret it forever if I didn't try. With Fiona's encouragement, Hank took the leap. The first months were stressful, long hours trying to establish his business, while ensuring Lily still had the stability and attention she needed. Fiona stepped in often, sometimes working remotely from a small desk in the corner of his garage so they could at least be in the same space, or taking Lily for girls' afternoons when Hank had important clients. Nearly a year after they first met, Hank's business was finding its footing. Specializing in eco-friendly conversions of classic cars, a niche market that combined his mechanical skills with Fiona's technological expertise. They had found a rhythm to their lives that accommodated both their careers and their relationship. On the anniversary of the rainy night when they first met, Hank suggested they visit the park gazebo. Lily was having a sleepover at a friend's house, giving them a rare evening alone. It looks so different in the sunshine, Fiona commented as they sat on the same bench where she'd been crying a year ago. You look different too, Hank said, taking her hand. Happier, I hope. Because of you, she said simply. You and Lily brought joy back into my life when I thought I'd lost it forever. Hank took a deep breath. I need to tell you something, and I'm not sure how you'll take it. Fiona tensed beside him, old insecurities momentarily surfacing. What is it? I've been saving for months, he said, reaching into his pocket. Every extra dollar from the business. I wanted to do this right. When he withdrew a small velvet box, Fiona's breath caught. Inside was a ring not extravagant by her usual standards, but beautiful in its simplicity. It's not the biggest diamond, Hank said, suddenly nervous. But it was my grandmother's, and it's perfect, Fiona interrupted, tears welling in her eyes. I love you, Fiona Oakes, Hank said, his voice steady despite his racing heart. You came into our lives unexpectedly, but now I can't imagine my future or Lily's without you in it. Will you marry me? Yes, Fiona said without hesitation. 1,000 times yes. As he slipped the ring onto her finger, Fiona thought about the journey that had brought them here. A year ago, she had been at her lowest point, betrayed, heartbroken, questioning her judgment. Now she was the happiest she'd ever been, with a man whose worth couldn't be measured in dollars, but in the strength of his character and the depth of his love. Their wedding 6 months later was a perfect blend of their worlds, intimate and meaningful rather than showy. Lily, serving as flower girl, had been the first to call Fiona Mom during the reception, a moment that left not a dry eye in the house. 2 years into their marriage, as they welcomed twin boys, Hayes and Flynn, into their family, Hank and Fiona had created a life that neither could have imagined that rainy night in the park. Hank's business had grown into a respected name in eco-friendly classic car restoration, while Fiona had successfully steered her company through crisis into its most profitable years yet. "Did you ever think this is where we'd end up?" Fiona asked one evening as they watched Lily, now 9, carefully holding one of her baby brothers while instructing him very seriously about his responsibility as a Grayson. "Not in my wildest dreams," Hank admitted, his arm tightening around her shoulders. "But I'm grateful every day for whatever made you cry in that park. Even though you had to give me your handkerchief," she teased. "Best handkerchief I ever lost," he replied with a smile. "It brought me you." On their 5th wedding anniversary, they returned once more to the gazebo in the park, this time with all 3 children. As Lily chased her energetic 3-year-old brothers around the grass, Hank and Fiona sat on their bench, fingers intertwined. "You know what I was thinking that night when you found me?" Fiona asked. "That I'd made a terrible mistake building my life around someone who didn't deserve my trust, that maybe I wasn't capable of recognizing genuine love. And now," Hank asked, bringing her hand to his lips. "Now I know I just hadn't met you yet," she said simply. "The man who stopped to help a crying stranger even when he had every reason to just drive by." As they watched their family, the curious, kind-hearted daughter who had first brought them together, and the twin boys who had her determination, and their father's gentle strength, Hank and Fiona, reflected on the unexpected path that had led them here. They had built a life that honored both their worlds. Weekend trips in Hank's restored vintage truck alongside charity galas, where he now moved with easy confidence. Quiet evenings at home and exciting family vacations, teaching their children the value of hard work alongside the importance of generosity. What had begun as a moment of kindness in the rain had grown into a love that neither had been looking for, but both had desperately needed a reminder that sometimes the most beautiful beginnings come disguised as endings, and that comfort offered to a stranger can return 1,000-fold in unexpected ways. As the sun began to set over the park, casting long shadows across the gazebo where their story began, Hank pulled Fiona close and whispered, "I love our life." "So do I," she replied, watching as Lily now held both her brothers' hands, guiding them carefully up the gazebo steps to join their parents. "Every single part of it." And in that moment, surrounded by the family they had built together, both Hank and Fiona knew with absolute certainty that sometimes the universe puts exactly the right person in your path at exactly the right moment, even if it takes a rainstorm, a broken heart, and a little girl's wisdom to recognize the gift you've been given.